Do I believe that Christ is the way and the life and that no one comes to the Father but through him? Sure. But I also know what that means.
The middleman is a lie. There are no middlemen. Mm-hmm. It's just about you and your relationship, and that's it.
I saw it, a while ago before all this happened. And I knew something was coming. The market. You have to learn how to read the curve.
And Satan's ultimate goal is to prevent people from coming to Christ, to take over everything, to rule in the place of God. He is the usurper.
So with all your studies that you've done in the Bible, do you believe in it?
Do I believe that the truth sets you free? Absolutely.
Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was wrong. We were given bad information about ivermectin. The real question is,
who were you given that bad information by?
The government. The Lord has demonstrated to us that we were lied to. Whatever the issues are in the world, the church is the only hope of the world. The greatest threat to this nation is the government. Listen carefully to what the Apostle Paul said. Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same.
Former CNN anchors are praising ivermectin like an anti-parasitic saint. The world is changing rapidly, and therefore I can tell you with great clarity and confidence that you were ahead of the curve. I remember when this whole thing began.
If categories dissolve, especially fundamental ones, the culture is dissolving.
What is Satan's objective? Listen to Peter's words. He's a liar. He distracts, he divides, he destroys, he sifts, he silences, he strategizes, he steals.
The culture is dissolving because the culture is a structure of category.
The father lies, and he is a murderer.
Whoever tries to hinder us, and even more so to create threats to our country, to our people, should know that Russia's response will be immediate.
This is a premeditated attack.
Russia's unprovoked and unjustified attack on Ukraine.
Unprovoked war of aggression against Ukraine.
This unprovoked has got to be met with strength.
Vladimir Putin decided unprovoked.
So, was it unprovoked?
You're not paying attention to the story.
We wrestle not against flesh and blood, humanity, but against principalities and powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in the heavenlies. He oppresses, he possesses, he blinds, and he kills. And he has a goal. He has an objective. He's heading human history toward his kingdom.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. Roughly speaking, we have a bedrock of agreement. That's the Bible, by the way.
So the structure, that's what the Bible
Yeah, it's what
provides.
I figured out. I just figured this out this week.
As these divinely designed spheres of control in human society descend into chaos, the government will cease to function the way God designed it, and in fact, it will become the enemy of the divine design. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it doesn't bear the sword for nothing. For it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil. The problem is when government ceases to function by God's design, it yields up its authority.
Living in a secular society and living in a society that has a lot of people that are atheists, that have no belief system at all, is you find a belief system. Their God is this ideology that they think that you have to subscribe to.
But these type of influences led me to this atheist life, and then it justified my sin, because when you're an atheist, there's nothing wrong. So I can live in my sin. I can chase as many women as I want, and I can do all this, and bam, now I'm here. Now I'm dealing with my sin, and I can't deal with it.
Now, I want you to understand that there's some supernatural reasons why this is happening. They're not political, they're not even social in the fullest measure. What do we mean by the world? The world as the complex of evil. The word is cosmos. It means a system. The complex of evil works against what is good.
What person, you talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer. I am taking a regular dose of ivermectin.
And there was plenty of sources you could have gone to discover the actual reality of this situation, but you didn't. Now you're vaccine injured, and you are one of those people, apparently, for whom ivermectin is an appropriate treatment, because for some people who are vaccine injured, ivermectin actually helps alleviate symptomology very strongly.
Everyone's going to say, Joe Rogan was right. No, Joe Rogan was saying, he was right.
I was corrupted by public education. I believe for a long time in Joe Rogan podcast. He spews so much bullshit. It makes me so mad. Now, I love Joe with all my heart, but he's full of shit, and I tell him right to his mother.
It's very difficult to only think or say things that are true, but you can practice it. And it's a great relief. As you pointed out, you don't have to keep track of anything because that causes the best within you to make itself manifest.
And unfortunately, a lot of very intelligent people, they dismiss all of the positive aspects of religion because they think that the stories are mere superstitious fairy tales that, they have no place in this modern world, and, we're inherently good and your ethics are based on your old moral compass and we all have one. And
y'all don't understand the enemy if you don't understand demons. They seek death and destruction.
We need Jesus.
Look, Christ says his burden is light. And what does that mean? It means that there's really nothing that can provide abundance and security like the truth.
Like now we're starting to see the fruits. Now we are starting to see and to be able to observe in real time the coming, the awakening.
That's not what matters. What matters is the entire clinical community knew that ivermectin couldn't hurt you. They knew it, Patrick. I know they knew it. How do I know? Because now I'm doing nothing but talking to these clinicians who at the time were overwhelmed by COVID, and they weren't saying anything. Not that they were hiding anything.
Yeah. And Paul says in Ephesians 6:12, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, humanity, but against principalities and powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world. It's not just a human complex of evil. It is behind that the entire force of hell operates. The enemy is not just sinful people. It is the system of evil behind that visible evil, that invisible system basically under the control of the prince of demons, Satan himself, and all his demon cohorts.
No, they need to be shamed. They need to be called out and shamed, brother. So they were wrong to play scared on that.
Are you starting to sense that an inherent and incredible and repeated ingredient of the globalist war is the continual attempt to deconstruct and detach you from all of your values, like nothing is real. Good and evil aren't real. Literature isn't real. God isn't real. So who's your God now?
To believe in God is to commit your life. That's what the belief is. It isn't the statement, I believe in God. Just because you say you believe something, it's like people say all the time that they're Christians.
You have to count the cost. You can't go through the narrow gate with your baggage.
That's the most difficult possible commitment by definition. It's right? Really? You're going to commit to that, are you? So here's what you're committing to. Painful, unjust death, accompanied by betrayal, the perfidy of the mob, and the dominion of the tyrant.
Please notice in verses 1 and 2 that government is from God, by God, of God. The man who wrote that, the Apostle Paul, was in violation of the government more often than any other person in the entire New Testament. And when he went to preach the gospel, he was very often thrown in jail, and ultimately he was executed by the government that he refused to obey when it no longer functioned to protect good behavior and punish evil behavior.
And you're going to welcome that. And that's not all, because Christ harrows hell. That's not all. That's just where it starts. Full confrontation with malevolence. You're going to commit to that, are you? The point is that the belief is a commitment to a pattern. The pattern is full voluntary confrontation, full naked, crucified voluntary confrontation, accepted in good faith, with joy, and courageously. But the cross part of it is you have to decide not to shrink away from anything. We're built for the maximum sacrifice. That's what it means to believe, to accept that. It's a total commitment to confront and ride out the worst. I'll give you an example. So in the story of Exodus, the Israelites are lost in the desert. And they're always whining, complaining, and acting like, privileged slaves and pining for the tyranny and hoping for the golden calf and complaining that the heavenly food they have to eat isn't good enough.
Command that this stone becomes bread.
Because there's not enough variety. It's like they're really quite contemptible. And near the end of their voyage to the promised land, really on the border, they run out of water again. They go to Moses. They're faithless and complaining, and God gets sick of them again, and he sends a bunch of poisonous serpents in to bite them.
If you will bow down, then worship me.
You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. Remember the snake. Remember the snake. Because you're going to get bitten like you never got bitten before.
And you might think, well, no good God would do that. It's like you're not paying attention to the story. And so you're in the desert and you don't have enough to drink, and there's all sorts of stupid things you can do that bring the snakes forward. And so that's what happens, is that it's already bad and they make it worse. So now there's all these poisonous snakes biting them. And they go to Moses and they say, well, we know that you can talk to God, and so do you want to see if he'll call off the snakes? Moses goes and has a chat with God, and God says basically that he's pretty sick and tired of the Israelites, and he thinks that some more snakes might be just the thing they need, but he decides that maybe he'll listen to Moses. And so God says to Moses, cast a serpent in bronze. He doesn't get rid of the snakes. He calls upon the Israelites to face what they're avoiding.
Yeah. And that's part of what I have to live with, is I have to live with my sin.
What's the story? To face what's poisoning them. And because of that, they become stronger. If you're lost and faithless, and then you get whiny and resentful, it's just going to make it worse. Job, for example, in the story of Job, Job is tortured by Satan himself. Job's a good man, and he refuses to lose faith in God. And it's kind of perverse in a way, because Job has every bloody reason to shake his fist at God and die, which is what his wife tells him to do.
You have to break away from the crowd, and even the most intimate people in your life who are very frequently going to be your enemies.
And Job's insistence is, no matter what happens to you, you're called upon to maintain faith and move forward.
It's hard to even find it, let alone enter it. And if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must enter the narrow gate. It's as narrow as the gospel. You must enter alone.
And that's expanded in the crucifixion story. And I try to live in that knowledge. Look, why did you push yourself on the military front? Why did you go become a Navy SEAL? Why was it real?
Because it's the hardest thing that I've done.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Was it meaningful?
Absolutely.
Was it transformative?
Yes.
And it was the hardest thing you'd ever done. Okay, well, that's the pathway. The pathway to what's most real is through the hardest things that you can do.
It's very difficult to enter. You leave the world behind. This is not a group exercise.
Joe Manchin, the West Virginia Democrat, picked today, the day following the historic conviction, to announce his defection from the Democratic Party, registering instead as an independent.
You have to break away from the crowd, and few there be that find it. And for those who find it, entering the narrow gate, Jesus is demanding, deny yourself, take up your cross. That's the only thing you bring with you, is an instrument to be crucified on, and obey him. On the other hand, you could choose the wide gate, easily found, easily marked, lots of crowds, no difficulty, no self-denial, Bring your baggage, bring your sin, bring your self-will. No repentance, no surrender, no submission to Christ. It's for those who want a little religion, but religion that doesn't ask them to give up everything.
Now we're going to get to the blatant attempt at rewriting history. Let's listen in.
So, Doc, AstraZeneca made a headline today pulling the vaccine. They say it's because the demand curve isn't there anymore.
I don't know if you saw what James Comey said yesterday. He got emotional. If he gets in there, he's going to completely change everything with our justice system.
What has happened is President Biden has turned our country into a country where those in power are using the law, the rule of law, and our justice system and law enforcement to persecute their political opponents.
He's going to do everything with FBI.
Such
and
liars.
He's going to put some bad people in there. And I'm telling you guys, this is you cannot vote for Trump. You have to support.
These guys still have security clearances? Of course they do.
For sure.
They use them for their jobs.
2 gates, 2 ways, 2 destinations, and 2 crowds. And by the way, neither of them says hell. Nobody's selling hell. Nobody is propagating a religion that sends you to hell. They're promising you heaven, but unless it's the true religion, it's a damning lie.
If a New Yorker can't save this country, no one can. No one can. We're dealing with a corrupt government. We have a corrupt country. Our elections are corrupt. Our borders are open.
You're not paying attention to the story.
The middleman is a lie. There are no middlemen, and that's it.
You have to learn how to read the curve.